Hey guys, this is Men in Black in Recovery. I'm Simon.
And I'm Samir.
And today I just came across an interesting article. I feel like it hits us in the recovery community, and it's about the idea of vaping, right? This article talks about the fact that there are a lot of people who are going to the hospital with vaping related illnesses that are taking up some of the same resources as people who are struggling with this COVID-19 virus. So, Samir, tell me about just what are the different reasons people maybe are using the vaping?
Well, what always comes to mind is recreational purposes, right? Um, People want to have fun, people want to feel good. And then you have the people that have legitimate medical reasons, whether it's a disease like cancer or some type of other illness that has been tried to heal by other stuff and doesn't work. But I think what the article is really talking about is people that are just going out there and partying and not being mindful that if something does happen, you might need to go to the emergency room, and it's very occupied right now, and you might take the space, obviously, of someone who didn't have a choice in um, what happened to them, as someone who's vaping now might.
Yeah, and the demographic consideration is that I realize a lot of people, I've seen the statistics where it trends that maybe those that are 65 and older are more susceptible to the coronavirus, and that this kind of brings a new demographic into play. And I know we're always concerned about the saturation of the hospital beds, so that's a very valid point. You made a great point that there's a lot of people using vaping for medical purposes and other important reasons, but it's just something that sounds like the article saying if it's possible to avoid it, we should be avoiding it.
Right. And it's really saying, unless you have any medical purposes that you really have to ingest this, if you can do it any other way, I mean, even the nicotine, I guess it's not good to smoke, but if you're going to smoke, I guess if you do it through cigarette, you don't have the vape situation. So people can be do what they want with their lives, right? But when it comes to other people, all we're asking, because of what the article and because of what we know of being in recovery, is just to take that into consideration, take other people's situation into consideration.
Absolutely. And I know from a recovery perspective, we don't want to put one negative behavior or behavior that has negative consequences in place of another one. We want to find something positive. So I just off the top of my head, I think about, making gratitude lists. I think about the idea of making phone calls and engaging with people and other ways to really use that time that we would use on something like recreational vaping. Any other
Right.
ideas?
And I think most people in recovery, for the most part, are good on that, or at least some of them. I'm sure with younger generations, it's a little bit more difficult. But but in essence, unfortunately, what happened with the nicotine industry with the vaping, it just overnight it started producing millions and then billions of dollars. So we also have the industries that produce, for example, the nicotine. They are lobbying in Washington as much as they can and putting all sorts of money towards not being harsher restrictions or rules for people to be able to buy the nicotine vape, especially youth, teenagers who are the most who use it. So we look at that too. And then on the other side, there's this whole conglomerate pushing that agenda.
Mm.
So we have to, once again, instruct people, campaigns, letting them know what vaping really does and how it affects their health in a period of 1 year, 5 years, 10 years. Because in the end, Simon, I think that's what's really going to help people understand what vaping is and lower the vaping population, regardless of whether we're having the coronavirus or not.
Yeah, absolutely. So, kind of summarizing what we talked about, the idea here is that if there's a way for you not to be using vaping right now, it's really compassionate and considerate, thinking about the hospital and the resources that are out there to fight this virus that none of us really asked for, but we've got to face right now in this season of our lives. And man, just to make sure that we're not contributing to that problem with the behaviors that we're taking on. So,
Besides, it's absolutely terrible for your health also. It's less terrible than cigarettes, but it's still not like you said, a good alternative. Now, we're talking about, some people in recovery, they smoke for a couple of years, they do this for a couple of years, and eventually let go of that too. So we're not saying anything bad about those people. We're pertaining to the vaping situation. We believe that with time, as long as you continue to work on your recovery, some people do it right off the bat, right? And they say, listen, I don't want to hang on to these other things here. I'm done. And some people, it takes a little bit longer. So we're not talking about those people in recovery who still have this issue that they're working on. We're just talking about people who are indiscriminate vaping just for the sake of it over and over and over and over and over again, not taking consideration that there are people that might need the emergency room. But Simon and I will tell you that's probably the worst thing you can do for your health anyway, correct?
Correct. And, I know that my recovery journey, I've really focused on the idea of complete wholeness and wellness.
Right.
As I started my recovery journey, the main issue is pornography, but man, I come over to compulsive eating and I realized like that's a terrible substitute because I'm hurting my body. I was hurting my soul before, and now I'm hurting my physical body. I don't want to be hurting myself at all. I want to be
You're
doing.
absolutely right. It took me years to understand what nicotine was and to finally put it down. But I wish I could have done it earlier. It's many years since then. But sometimes we do, sometimes someone with addictions, instead of running towards heaven, they back away slowly from hell. And obviously, it's not the right way to do it most of the time, but some people do it like that. Some people make a decision like you did right from the very beginning to let go of a lot of stuff. And the reason we're sharing that is just because we're going to be sharing a little bit about who we are too, Simon, with people, right? Like we've talked off camera, and letting them know that there isn't one particular best recovery. There's all difference. There's probably one road to go that's the easiest, but God will work with you if you give him something anyway, right, Simon?
Absolutely. I think that progress is the key in terms of recovery and willing to say, today, am I willing to engage in the battle for my
Yes.
long term wholeness and health and for those that I love? I know one of the aspects of recovery that has mattered to me most is just being more available for the people that I know have already told me that they love me, and now I can show them in response that I love them as well. And I know that for me to diminish my own health is going to take away from what I'm able to give. And that
You're
thought.
absolutely right. And that's the beauty that recovery gives us. The more that we're in recovery, the more that we can see that, right? And we break that chain, which is beautiful because yes, doing anything that is counterproductive to our health obviously is going to affect our family. And those of us who are married and have kids and all that, well, the impact is bigger because obviously we're like the leader of the family, or at least the one that they're looking up to as a man to sustain them and supply the needs for them. So obviously we would be the worst person to get sick.
Absolutely. And my heart also goes to all the single people out there that don't think that they're making a contribution in the world. I think one of the
Right?
biggest lies that we believe about ourselves is that we don't have a contribution to make to the world. I think part of that comes from not experiencing who you really are, because man, recoveries started, or not recovery, I'm sorry, the addictions and struggles that we've had have really taken pieces of that away. And so recovering that identity one little piece at a time, I think the world would be blessed to know the real you behind all of that and the real me. And I'm not saying that because I feel like I'm the greatest guy in the world, but I
No.
realize that I was made to give something to this world, and I'd like to be able to do it. It brings me a lot of joy, and I was missing that. And that's a big deal.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Simon. You're absolutely right. And that self-centered part of us dies, which is, the self-centeredness in my addiction was I wanted something, and something I couldn't have, or I wanted something that I didn't have. And I wanted something that I had and I didn't want to lose it. And most of my decisions were based on how it affect me and not other people. And that was the core of my addiction, whether if I was going to use drugs or whether I was going to do something else. And it's so good to lose that, what you're talking about, that self-centeredness. And like Simon said, I'm not perfect either. We're a work in progress, but it's good to be mindful. And I think what caught Simon's article, because he's the one who brought it to me, was that like how mindful we have to be of other people. And that only happens by being sober, being in recovery. So it's a great point you brought up, Simon.
Yeah, and the truth is, we all need support and help along the way to get there. Samir is a board certified counselor that is available in telehealth, I guess you call it, or the format just like
Right,
this.
yeah, online, virtual, to different, and twice a week I'm going to see people in my office for now.
Okay. And Celebrate Recovery is running virtually now, but as we get out of this COVID-19 crisis, we'll be right back to where we were. We have weekly meetings, and it's actually a worldwide ministry, but we've got them at First Baptist Orlando. And man, would love to have you just join the tribe of people who are serious about taking these steps of progress one step at a time and asking their higher power for help along the way. So, Samir, great talking with you today.
It's great talking to you. My favorite man in black here is Simon. So that's an inside joke. You'll probably understand it more and more as we go along. We are men in black in recovery, correct?
That's right.
That's
We
as
are.
black as we can today. He has a little white there. We're going to eliminate that for next time. I'm the artistic director and